Here at home, White House Budget Director Mick Mulvaney is on the Hill this morning, testifying before the House Budget Committee just a day after unveiling the White House budget proposal for 2018. That proposal meeting a decidedly unenthusiastic response from Republicans, some even going further, saying it's DOA. Joining me now, Republican Congressman Buddy Carter of Georgia. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning.
Let me start with health care because you voted for the American Health Care Act. Are you concerned about the impending CBO score?
Well, I'm not concerned. I think that, we've already had 2 CBO scores on this bill already. We did add another amendment that will impact it some, but I think when the CBO score comes in, it's going to show that we're going to have lower premiums, we're going to have more accessibility, so I think that the CBO score will be just fine.
Do you think there's going to be more accessibility? I mean, for example, one of the arguments that has been made by people who support it is that people to continue to be able to have coverage for pre-existing conditions. And in fact, insurers cannot deny people coverage outright, as was a common practice before Obamacare's passage, but they can hike up premiums to an unaffordable level, effectively pricing people out of the market. One of the reasons AARP opposes it is they say those premiums could reach over $25,000 for a year for people in high-risk pools. So what do you say to them?
Well, if you will look at the bill itself, if you'll look at the MacArthur Amendment, if you'll look at the amendments that were added by Representative Long and Representative Upton, you'll see that we have taken care of pre-existing conditions. Now, the only time that they can go up on the rates is when someone lets their coverage lapse for more than 63 days. We're not going to allow people to game the system. You can't buy fire insurance on your house when your house is on fire. You can't buy health insurance when you find out you got cancer. You have to have continuous coverage. So as long as they have continuous coverage, they're not going to see an increase in their prices. Now, they will see an increase if they let their coverage lapse for more than 63 days. So that's just a part of not letting people game the system.
Let me ask you about now some specific concerns on the president's budget plan. And I mentioned that there are a number of your colleagues, Republicans, both in the Senate and the House, who have said it's dead on arrival. Is that how you view the president's budget proposal?
No, not at all. I applaud the president in what he has proposed here. Finally, we have a president who understands that we've got to cut up the credit cards in Washington, D.C. We've got to cut spending. We've got to have entitlement reform. We've got to grow our way out of this deficit that we have. Those are the things that I ran on 2.5 years ago.
But how does it do that? I'm still looking for an economist who will say to me, for example, that they believe that we're going to get growth to go from, 1.6, 1.7% to 3%. Can't find an economist who will say that. In addition, it says that the growth is going to come from these tax cuts, and yet it does not include the losses from these tax cuts. I mean, where is the bottom line that you can show me that legitimate economists will look at and say that this math is not wrong?
Well, if you will look, what the president is doing is try to create jobs. And through jobs, that increases our economy. And that's exactly what the president is doing here. We have a project in my district, the Savannah Harbor Expansion Project. So you're basing everything in this budget on something you can't say for sure is going to happen? Look, can you say for sure what's going to happen? What the president has proposed here is common sense.
That's
and it's exactly what he campaigned on.
Accounting is about. Accounting is about being able to show what's going to happen. It's not, it's very specific. Let me ask you about some of the specifics, if I can, Congressman, and just quickly, if I can run through them. For example, Lindsey Graham says deep State Department cuts are irresponsible and will lead to more Benghazis. Are you concerned about that?
Keep in mind that this is only a starting point. This begins the conversation. Now the Budget Committee has their work to do. Now we've got our work to do in Congress. The budget starts and ends with Congress. This is the president's recommendation to us. This is what he wants to see happen.
So let me ask you about some of the specifics that you're going to have to be looking at, and I'm going to start with Lindsey Graham and his concern about the cuts to the State Department. Are you concerned about the cuts to the State Department? Is that a place where you would put money back in?
Well, I haven't seen the specific cuts that have been outlined in the president's budget. Certainly, we need to look at this. And look, the president has increased spending in defense, which is something we all agree needs to be done. Look at what just happened in Manchester. The number one responsibility of our federal government is to protect our homeland and protect our citizens. We can only do that through a strong military. I applaud the president for increasing military spending. It's what we need to do at this time. We live in a dangerous world. We need to make sure that we're prepared.
But you're doing that, you're increasing military spending without taking on the biggest parts of the budget, things like Social Security. So let me go to a deeper dive that is something you know very much about, or I assume you do. There are huge cuts to global health care plans in this budget, and there are many people who are suggesting it could cost 1 million people their lives in sub-Saharan Africa and elsewhere. You're a pharmacist. You're somebody who understands the value of life-saving drugs. If that's true, is that something you would be okay with in order to save money, in order to help bring the costs down?
Of course not. You know, you're never going to get me to say that I want to cut programs and let people die. None of us want to do that.
But by many analyses, if you take the money away from foreign aid that allows for health programs, there is a cause and effect. You would agree with that?
I would agree there's a cause and effect. There's also a cause and effect of being more efficient and more effective in the way that we spend our dollars. That's what the president's proposing. That's what we need to do in Congress, and that's what I'm going to try my best to get us to do.
Congressman Buddy Carter of Georgia, always good talking with you. Thank you so much.